JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is something I've been interested in for quite a while now, ever since I played the original Capcom fighting game. I never really thought I would actually go and check it out. It just seemed very unique and kind of quirky, but I never really thought I'd sit down and actually read it or watch whatever the various anime adaptations. Until I became a Shin Megami Tensei fan, and a lot of people in the Shin Megami Tensei fan base really seem to like JoJo's, and apparently it has quite a few similarities with Persona. So I said, why the hell not? I'll go and I'll read it. Now, a lot of people just told me straight up, watch the recent anime adaptation. It's very faithful. It's well animated, and you don't even need to read the manga. But I haven't sat down and actually read a manga series in oh geez, it might be 5 years at this point. So I thought, I'm going to get back in the groove of things, and I'll sit down and I'll read part one. That's another thing with JoJo's, is that it's kind of a generational saga, and each different character that takes on the name JoJo in this family has their own part in the long-running series. So I recently finished part one, and it's very weird because this was written and, well, I guess drawn in the 70s, and it's very odd because it feels dated. It definitely feels dated in terms of just plot structure and character choices and just the overall feel it gives off and atmosphere. But it doesn't really feel like it's aged terribly. Like, it holds up really well, even though the characters are kind of, I don't necessarily want to even say static, but there's not much ambiguity to them, I guess is the word. And this really shows through the main character, Jonathan Joestar, and his rival, Dio. I guess I should get into the story here. So, the Joestar family is a very wealthy family living in Europe. I'm not entirely sure where. I'm pretty sure they say, but I know it's Europe somewhere, around the late 1800s. And basically, because of circumstances, which are kind of spoilers, this man known as Dio comes to live with them at a young age. And he and Jonathan don't get along. And by don't get along, I mean Dio is just a complete asshole that wants to manipulate the Joestar family. And Jonathan's a nice kid that gets beat up a lot for unfair reasons, and he's a strong guy, but he has a heart of gold, if that makes sense, that kind of character archetype. And those two characters' characterizations alone kind of reflect on the rest of the work. The good people in this are really good and have little flaws, and the bad people are complete assholes that are evil. They're just straight up evil. And that's something I like. I find Dio really, really interesting as a villain, and he's kind of a meme at this point just because of how badass he is. And I think, I'm not sure if this is necessarily a spoiler, but I think everyone kind of knows this going in. I think he reappears in part 3 and does more villainous stuff there, so I'll wait until I read part 3, but I'm kind of excited to get there just because I enjoyed Dio so much in part 1. Dio is just a douche, and he's a really good villain because of it. He's just flat out evil. There's a character that straight up says that Dio was evil since the minute he was born. It's that kind of evil prick. And the best part about Dio is that it seems like they defeat him a couple times throughout the course of this, but he just keeps coming back. He never really learns his lesson, or if he does learn anything from his various losses, it's just that he needs to try harder at being evil. And I found that really interesting. I really like that. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, we have Jonathan Joestar, or JoJo as everyone calls him, and he is just the nicest motherfucker. One could say that reading through it initially, it almost appears as if he's kind of too perfect in a way, but there's a lot more depth with his character than what it seems like at first. Whereas he is someone that is always doing what's right, even when it emotionally hurts him too. Such as the fact that Dio mistreats him throughout their childhood, and then when he has to fight Dio when they're older, because Dio's trying to basically destroy the world or enslave the world, JoJo is saddened by it just because he doesn't want to fight someone he grew up with, even though they weren't really friends when they were younger. He doesn't want to have to fight him just out of respect. So it's really interesting because that doesn't seem like an interesting character. It seems almost like he's too perfect in a way, but you can't help but like him just because of how nice he is. It's almost like Superman, but I guess even more interesting, where the character has very little flaws, but they're just so much fun to read about, and you just connect with them. Even more than Superman. Superman, for a lot of people, is hard to connect with. But it's so easy to connect with JoJo and have his bizarre adventure become your own, if you will. And he's always constantly trying to better himself and make sure everyone around him is safe, and you just can't help but love the guy. It's awesome. Now, there's a lot of side characters, too. I don't really want to talk about any of them because they're interesting, but it's obvious that this is JoJo and Dio's story. There's a few points in this where they introduce side characters and it feels like they're doing nothing, but later on they do stuff. One example is Speedwagon, who is this guy that JoJo meets early on, and he literally does nothing except spew out exposition for a few chapters, and then I was kind of getting sick of him, and I kind of felt like he was just there so that he was just there so that the author could explain what was going on. And then later on, Speedwagon complains that he wants to fight too, and that all he's done up to that point is just sit on the sidelines and talk. So I was kind of happy when that happened, because the author acknowledged that Speedwagon had been doing that for the past couple chapters, and Speedwagon acknowledged he needed to get off his ass and actually fight. So that was awesome. And then there's Zappelli, who is kind of JoJo's mentor later on. And I didn't really care for him at first, but then I realized he's just the generic mentor type character. And there's actually a lot of interesting backstory involving him once he gives a little bit of his background info to JoJo. So the side characters are okay, but like I said before, this is definitely JoJo and Dio's story. Sorry about the garage noises in the background, by the way. I hate when that happens. This is... I don't know. This is weird to describe because it's definitely very simple. It's a very simple story. But it's kind of charming because of that. I kind of feel like this was a nice break from modern media as a whole, just because this was from a time where stories were a lot more simpler and we weren't as harsh criticizing basic plot structures like this, where nowadays a lot of people complain about just the average hero's journey being a waste of time and a dead horse at this point. But I'm not going to lie, sometimes just the simpler good versus evil plots are just what you want to experience, and this definitely gave me that, and it was very refreshing in a way. So I really appreciate it for that, and I highly recommend this. Honestly, there's not much to talk about, I feel, with this. It's just good without being... There's not much substance to it. It's just short but sweet, a nice little thing to read, and I'm pretty excited to read the next 7 parts. So yeah, I'm definitely going to continue reading JoJo's. I think I'm solidified as a fan at this point, and I can't wait to read the next parts. So I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10 just because, well, I guess I'll put it this way. So JoJo's sets out to just tell an entertaining tale of good versus evil, and this young man growing up and defeating the evil. And it does that really well. It's just that it doesn't necessarily do anything too outstanding or remarkable. It's just a short little read that's fun to get through, but it's not anything that's too amazing or not anything that's going to make you want to reread it immediately or go out and recommend it to people. At least not yet. Like I said, I'm pretty excited to read the next couple parts, and can't wait to play that fighting game coming out for PS3 soon. That looks pretty entertaining. Stay tuned for more JoJo's reviews from me. So, yeah, see ya.